Wednesday, May 27th in the morning. We are kicking off the capital improvement plan hearings for the day. We'll do a round of introductions and then we'll let Claudia run us through New Orleans Mosquito Termite Rodent Control Board. I'm Laura Bryan, City Planning Commission.
I'm Cameron Boissier, City Planning Commission.
Larry Massey, City Planning. Kyle Holman, Capital Budget.
Gary Johnson, City Planning Brownfield Program.
Claudia Regal, City of New Orleans Mosquito Termite and Rodent Control Board.
Great. So we are recording, right? Karen?
Yes.
Yes. So you can just run us through your
Okay,
request.
great. Thank you so much. Thanks for hosting this morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present some of our ideas for improving the facilities at City of New Orleans Mosquito Termite and Rodent Control Board. As I said, my name is Claudia Regal, and this is for the budget of 2027 through 2031. All right, so you'll see the first few items, 1 through 5 actually, are about putting in generators for some of the facilities that we have. And I think, just as a reminder, what we do for the City of New Orleans, we do all of the mosquito abatement, rodent abatement, we do pest management for city facilities and green space, and actually we're about to start getting into aquatic weeds as well, right? So for mosquito abatement and rodent control, but really mosquito abatement is a category B item if there is some sort of emergency or disaster. And so it's really critical for our facilities to be able to stay up and running after storms or some sort of critical event. And the other thing is we do have some insecticides that need to stay around 75 degrees or so, not much higher. So actually currently we have them in the facility with air conditioner, like just a unit, so that we stay within label requirements of those products. What we don't want to do is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go bad, and then you have to dispose of those products, which is an issue. So we do have an aircraft. It's a rotary wing. It's a Bell 505 helicopter. It's on the lakefront. And power is really critical in that facility because the power lifts the hangar doors. So if there is no power or auxiliary power, those doors don't go up or down. So we don't want to trap, obviously, the aircraft inside, and then we also need to be able to put the aircraft back in after a disaster, so it's not left out into the weather. And also functional. All right, so that's what that was for. So number 1 is a generator for the hangar. And we're asking for approximately $300,000 for that project. We are in a V zone. The City of New Orleans owns the property. The lakefront owns the land, but we're in a 50-year long-term lease with the lakefront airport. And so the big issue there is that it's just, we really need power for the doors. It would be the biggest power draw. And then we would need a platform. Because it is in a V zone, so we're looking at least 11 feet above the land that's there, so that if water comes in like it did during Katrina, it's not going to affect the upstairs, which it didn't, by the way, during Katrina. So it just sort of gives you a good line there. Number 2 is going to be a generator for the elevated warehouse. So our elevated warehouse is already at the 500-year floodplain, and this is where we keep some of those insecticides that are required to be under climate control. We're asking for $175,000 for that. It's an individual building. The third one is for the generator for the spray unit, or I would say the warehouse that keeps all of the spray trucks and the units. So again, we're asking for $200,000 for that. And you can see we split it up into 2 years essentially, because you have to do planning, you have to do specs, you have to put it out to bid. So I don't think it's realistic to do it all under 1 year. It would be a 2-year process. In that building, we have all kinds of equipment. We also have batteries that we use for all of our mosquito traps. We have 52 locations across the City of New Orleans. So those things are really critical to keep going after an event. The fourth one is going to be a generator for the biolab facility out at 13200 B Old Gentilly Road It's over in that sort of fire municipal complex that's there. That building has never been flooded. And so there's like, I think a berm that's almost like a triangle that goes around by NASA, because it's right next to Inishu. So that's really great for protecting it from flood. It's an individual building. After Hurricane Katrina, we actually used that building to house a bunch of staff because our other facilities were destroyed. But it's the same thing there. It hosts people. This would really help with continuity of the program after a disaster. We have a lot of freezers, mosquitoes that we, keep colonies for resistance testing, for all kinds of things. That's mosquito control related, so that's what that is. We also there have tanks for fish and different kinds of biological control that we use. So those things require power and makes it very important after a storm. The fifth and last generator is gonna be for another warehouse that we have. So we have a complex, right? And so we worked with an electrician to say, okay, can multiple buildings be put on the same generator? And really the way it's set up, it needs to be individual generators. And we are really looking for natural gas. And those lines for all of them are there. So either they're already piped into the building or they're at the street level, so it's not very far. The only location would be the airport hangar that they have gas in the vicinity. We just sort of need to figure out where it is so the line can be pulled in. But I think it's much better option to go with the natural gas. So we don't have to worry about diesel and how the trucks get in and all that business. So that building as well is important because it holds pesticides, it holds equipment, and it helps with the function. All right, number 6 is the dump truck. So we've had a dump truck historically for 50 years, right? But our dump truck could move no more. It was like done. So it was a little raggedy dump truck out there. But you would say, hey, why does mosquito control need a dump truck, right? We do tire pickups. We're getting into the aquatic weed business, right? So that's gonna require moving that to locations and then also to the dump. Marsh work, there's a lot of reasons why a program like ours would use a dump truck. And then the other thing is we have an employee who also drives for Mardi Gras. So that vehicle would also double duty in Mardi Gras. So he would just take ours instead of having to rely on someone else's, on sanitation's unit. So it adds to the capacity of the city. We're asking for $275,000 for that. That would be, if that money is identified, then that would just go out to bid for a purchase. So I think that's very reasonable for it to be done in 1 year. Number 7 is a dehumidifying system. This is not a big request. It's $35,000, and that is for the hangar. So right now, other than the office area, the hangar is not climate controlled, and so it's brackish water, right? And so the reason we need a dehumidifier in there, it's not to add AC, we don't need that, because we have fans and everything, but it's really to remove that salt that's in the air, in that moisture, so that it doesn't add to corrosion to the helicopter. In the past, corrosion was a big issue for the airplane that was there, and that was a big reason for it, right? And the other thing is with the dehumidifier, so like it would allow us to reduce the number of times that we turn on that helicopter. So right now, we have to fly it 30 minutes a week per regulation of the manufacturer, FAA, and all of that. Part of it is because of those reasons of humidity that is in there, in the hangar, and our location. With the dehumidifying system, we would not have to turn it on every week for 30 minutes. So we could actually extend the time to having to turn it on, which then extends your hourly rate goes down and all of that. So there'll be a pretty quick return on investment for that. And that really is because of corrosion. All right, number 8 is a herbicide tank. So the end goal here is to be able to use the helicopter to do some herbiciding work down the road. If you've been to New Orleans East, especially in Village de l'Est, some of those canals are incredibly wide and it's just a mat of water hyacinth, very problematic. So there is a place for targeted herbicide applications in a much faster and effective way. But those tanks all have to be custom made. It did cost us $75,000 for the larvicide and the adulticide tanks, so we're using that estimate for that. And number 9 is in conjunction with the fire department. So when a lot of conversation was had with departments about the use of the helicopter and what it would be helpful for. And so we work very closely in pest management, but we've in the past looked at marsh fires with the department, with an OFD. So we had a nice conversation with them, and we outfitted the helicopter with a hook already for a Bambi bucket. So do you guys know what a Bambi bucket is? So it's a bucket that scoops up water and then goes and drops it on something, on a fire. So because we were planning ahead, that hook is already there. So what we need is actually the bucket, right? So, and it costs around $80,000 for that bucket. But that's going to be something where, let's say there's a marsh fire, or we're working with the superintendent and the folks at NOFD, they're like, hey, we really need your help for this. You're outfitted, Bambi bucket ready to go, pilot's good to go, let's do it, right? So that's a huge investment when it's already plumbed for that piece of equipment. Superintendent is Norman, Superintendent Nelson is totally on board. He's aware of this, and we had this discussion together for the submission. And that's what we had.
For the generators, have you done any of you kind of mentioned it, any of the engineering or
So
design?
we are in that process now. So as you guys probably know, through the course of our capital projects, we like to bring things to the table. We don't like to just keep asking, right? So we are actually working FEMA project to submit that through hazard mitigation through Austin and his team. So we already know what we need. We've already had an electrician come out. It's already it's gonna be drafted anyways. This is June 24th, right? Fingers crossed that we make the list, and that would allow some money to come to the table to help supplement, the request, right? So these are numbers that are not pulled out of the sky. So I mean, we have a pretty good idea of what we need. So where we are on the engineering side of things, and in fact, I just talked to property management, like their contractor, but we know what we need, we have it all outlined, we just need somebody to give us the proposal and a more accurate, I guess what their cost would be, but that all needs to be done by June 24th to submit to FEMA. So that all will be done in advance. So our goal here is to bring you some funds to the table as well.
And then the dehumidifying system just sounds like it would be a higher priority. Like, is there?
It is. I mean, why is it there? Like,
Yeah.
It's a pretty big priority. It's just, we just put the generators there because we know we're gonna submit that document anyway.
Okay.
I mean, if I had to say a dehumidifier before a dump truck, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Right? So that probably needs to go before. But to be honest, they're all pretty important, right? So it's that's why the generators were there, because I think we're category B responders after a storm, and we've had some success in the past with the generator at our administration building. So it was the same sort of thing. When we built that facility, we plumbed it already to take a full generator. And then working through some FEMA mitigation projects during the Landrieu administration, they got the funds. We have a really fantastic full building generator, which has come in. It's been used so many times. I mean, the last big time was Ida, where there was no power everywhere, and people are like, I can't come home. We're like, no, we have power, we have bathrooms, we have food. Bring you and your family, we're starting to work. And we were working 3 days after that storm. So our employees just took a room, and that was their hotel room. until their house got up and running. But you have to be creative during storms, and, but the bottom line is we have to provide service to our citizens, end of story. And that's how we were able to do it. So, these other buildings are not new buildings, right? So it would take some work to get those electrical systems and panels and everything up and running. But as I mentioned, we have already had an electrician there, so we have a pretty good idea what needs to get done. We're not gonna miss that opportunity for submission, ever. So, that's kind of where that is.
Okay, I don't have any questions.
All right. I wanted to talk to you at some point though. You have my number? Can you call me? We have some ideas about the weeks. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thanks for
All right.
coming and presenting.
Yes, call me if you need me at 2, okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks so much.
Good luck with your presentation.
All right, bye.
Bye. Okay, so shall we move into city planning? Let's do it.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Gaccio. I'm the program director for the City Planning Commission's Brownfield program. And today we're going to be talking about Poydras right-of-way. Poydras right-of-way, according to historic documentation. Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the Brownfields program. So for the last 4 years, the Brownfields program has been focused on bringing in funds to clean up the environment surrounding the priority developments for the city of New Orleans. And so we focused on priority projects such as the NSA, Sophie Gumbel House, Charles Shakespeare, and other projects that have been waiting for environmental financing for contaminants on the soils and have had trouble moving forward. Right now we're working with Economic Development and Jeff Schwartz and Office of Community Development on Poydras right-of-way. This site is highly contaminated, and here's a little history of that site. So according to historic documentation acquired through the Phase 1 environmental site assessment, the site now referred to as Poydras right-of-way was developed as early as 1895, with residential dwellings, railroad tracks, and the city lumber planning mill. By 1908, the residential dwelling and city lumber planning mill are no longer present, and additional railroad tracks have been added. From 1908 to approximately the late 1980s to early 1990s, the site was occupied with only railroad tracks. The tracks were removed sometime in the mid-1990s. The site has been unoccupied ever since, with only occasional use as parking and laydown for event prep for the Superdome and alternate surrounding businesses. The site is approximately 5.25 acres in size and consists of a vacant grassy lot located between South Galvez Street and South Broad Street in New Orleans, Louisiana. The site is bound by Poydras Street to the north, South Galvez Street to the east, Poydras Street Service Road to the south, and South Broad Avenue to the west. The vacant lot serves as the right-of-way for Poydras Street. The Phase 2 site assessment, environmental site assessment, the soil and groundwater samples were analyzed for total petroleum hydrocarbons, TPHs, as gasoline range organics, GROs, diesel range organics, DROs, and oil range organics, OROs. Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, RCRA, listed 8 metals: semi-volatile organic compounds, volatile organic compounds, PCBs, and pesticides and chlorinated herbicides. The soil analytic results were compared to LDEQ's Risk Evaluation Corrective Action Programs, or RECAP, screening standards. The Phase 2 report prepared September 18th, 2024, coordinated by CPC Brownfields program and funded by the EPA pass-through funds, recommended that should the property be redeveloped, corrective remedial action will be required. The funding currently being applied for in the CIP process will provide necessary pre-development remediation, soil removal, and clean infill to properly address and abate the contamination present on Poydras right-of-way, and prepare for future residential end use for this space. The Phase 1 and 978-page Phase 2 environmental site assessments are both available for review upon request at the City Planning Commission's Brownfield Program, 7th floor of New Orleans City Hall, or via email. I will read aloud the brief recommendations and conclusions from the Phase 2 evaluation by the environmental contractor dated September 18th, 2024, verbatim. Based on the findings of the recap evaluation, Terracon concludes the following. Petroleum hydrocarbons, SBOC, and metals are present in the surface soil above limiting standards. Constituents of concern detected in groundwater are below standards. The enclosed structure pathway was evaluated as part of the recap evaluation. The enclosed structure evaluation indicates that the potential for vapor intrusion does not exist. And based on findings, Terracon recommends the following. Corrective action to manage impact soil and Poitras right-of-way. This request will cover the pre-development, the soil removal, and the remediation and abatement of Poitras right-of-way, opening up for the end use, which is going to look like temporary housing for the unhoused, and move that project forward. Any questions?
This one's funded by the EPA grant entirely.
I'm sorry?
This project is funded by the EPA grant entirely.
The assessment, the
Yes.
phase 1 and phase 2 was already funded
But there's
through
no-
EPA pass-through funds.
There's no funding for the actual remediation.
Exactly.
Are there opportunities for grant funding to do anything like that?
Remediation funding is pretty difficult. The cleanup funds, unfortunately, all the levels have gone down significantly since the IIJA funds are no longer available under the current federal administration. Right now, the focus for this year's grant application is to go for assessment application for parks, and any cleanup applications would be for cleanups at the parks, the Ledden Park situation that we're looking at right now. And so, since those applications are already dedicated, this is the road that we're looking at for the Poitras right-of-way. And we have been working with Jeff Schwartz and Sam as well. I know that they have an application in as well to do the actual build of the structure on site, and this would assist with the pre-development activities that are needed to clean that site. I know this has been, according to Jeff and Sam, over 12 to 15 years of planning activities with a site that's so contaminated that there's no movement forward. It is a very centralized site, so I can see the advantage of making use of that site. Unfortunately, the contamination is so deep and throughout the entire site that they're unable to move forward with anything at all.
So is I don't know the amount, I don't have it in front of me.
2.5 million.
2.5 million, would that cover everything then?
It would cover the entirety
whole
of the
site?
site, yeah.
Even
yeah.
if like the development isn't for the entire area?
Right, and they wanted to limit that and, just focus on the area they were planning to develop, and sometimes these contaminants can move. And so you're talking about, flooding, post-disaster, some of these elements can move with that flooding, and if you're talking about residential, it's always better to just completely clean up the site than to kind of piecemeal it when you're dealing with this kind of contamination.
This request says 2 million,
2
so
million.
is
I'm
it,
sorry.
it's 2 million,
2
right?
million.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to update it, okay. Okay.
Any more questions for them? So we do have a request for the build out of a 7th floor conference room. This has been on our sheet for a number of years now. The purpose of this is that, the City Planning Commission and also the Board of Zoning Adjustments, we host, roughly 48 public hearings a year. About half or more of those are typically held in the City Council chamber. We have been, especially in recent years, we have been kicked out of the chamber due to committee meetings of the council and, other uses of the council chamber. And that really leaves us with no really good options for the business that we conduct and how we conduct our hearings. So what we're asking for is a space that could substitute, in the event that we're not able to schedule in the chamber, to have a space to conduct those meetings that would be equipped with Granicus, monitors, EV, and the like. We've been in discussion with property management about this project recently, very recently, and we have talked about this space as one option. Taking out the wall here, extending it back into the former office back there. and then, of course, redoing the space itself. There's been ongoing discussions about the future of the conference room right out the door here on the 7th floor. But I think that, whether it's this room, that room, or another room, I think it's simply important that it's probably in this building preferably, and that it is, equipped to meet our needs, and not only our needs, but the needs of the Food Credit Commission and the Historic District Landmarks Commission, who also experience a lot of the same issues with scheduling in the chamber. We have attempted to schedule on the 8th floor, which is the next best option, but there's a lot of competition for that room in scheduling, so I think having something dedicated for those three commissions would be very beneficial for our operations.
Thanks.
So,
You guys,
Is that usually the backup then, 7th floor? Or 8th floor?
8th floor if we can get it, if not, we try the 21st floor across
Yeah,
the street. And with that, we'll do it in here somehow,
Yeah. I guess my only comment would be, it'd be interesting to hear what Trepwise recommends, kind of,
Yeah.
because we made those comments kind of last year, of like how much do we continue putting into City Hall
Yeah, yeah.
when we don't know what the long-term,
Uh,
so, but I totally understand the need for it, and having a dedicated space, because that's what came out as a lot of, the, review of City Hall, of like, there aren't a lot of spaces for departments to use, so we need to figure out, the new future.
okay. What about the first one, criminal court remediation, which is still on this? Mhm.
That's just carried over from last year.
Okay, alright,
Cause we funded the clerk
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year.
Last year.
Yeah,
okay,
or, opposite.
thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Alright, and then, sign it on this.
DA. Great, yeah.
You can just sign it on the sign. Okay, so we are, recording the hearings and then we'll post it, they're not live. But what we'll do is just do a round of introductions and then you can just walk us through your requests, which are right here. So Laura Bryan, City Planning Commission.
Cameron Boissier, City Planning Commission.
Larry Massey, City Planning.
Kyle Holman for the capital budget.
Catherine Champlain, Capital Projects Administration.
Mandy McManus, accountant at the DA's office.
Micah Inns, Chief of Staff at the DA's office.
Thank you. And when you're ready, you can walk us through.
So we carried over our request from last year, and I believe it added 3% on the camera cost, just accounting for inflation. The cubicle updates were designed as part of the renovations that are being almost completed, and the cubicles had to be removed due to the budget. So just completing that with the cubicles that go with the renovation. Our cubicle parts are falling apart, propped up with various objects. So just replacing that on all 4 floors, and the surveillance camera system upgrades to provide comprehensive coverage of our building for obvious security reasons.
Okay.
I think the only comment I have, is, I believe this DA project was the last of the, projects funded through the law enforcement district bonds through the sheriffs. So we need to probably meet with the sheriff's office and the LED to confirm how much funding is remaining from those bonds, and if there is anything, then we would need to figure out what was the priority out of kind of what was initially agreed upon with those, I think there was like 5 facilities that saw funding through that. And so, that's on my to-do list because we acknowledged that that was like the last project to do. So that's something that we will be looking to do in the future, and we know that LED has been selling other bonds, so we're interested to see how those are going to be allocated and if there's opportunities for future bonding from them as well.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good. I don't know if you have anything to add, but I mean, it's.
But it, you know, it was designated as a need, you know, and it was within scope in the prior project, so.